I'd like to call to order this special called meeting for the Bedford County School Board for tonight, Thursday, February 6, 2025. Ms. Johnson, if you will, take the roll.
Mr. M. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Daniels.
Here.
Mr. S. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Holbrook.
Here.
Dr. Hubot.
Here.
Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mrs. Purvis. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to allow a board member to participate remotely in the February 6, 2025 special call meeting work session in accordance with BCPS policy BDD.
So you are making a motion to add.
That to the agenda.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have Mr. Daniels. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you.
All right, 2.01, continued discussion of fiscal year 26 preliminary budget. So I want to make a couple comments as the chairman of this board. We have spent an extensive amount of time creating this budget and looking at 25-26. We had several finance committee meetings. We come together last week and made a presentation and presented where we are in our total budget and our new ask of what we are going to be looking for to add. There are several things that are part of that add, and that is one, teacher pay increases. Where most people don't understand when the governor hands down a 3% increase, that's funded by the state at 1.5%. We have to find the other 1.5%. In addition to that, we also have what's called SOQs or standards of quality, where we have certain numbers of positions that are covered by the state, but anywhere where we expand over that number, we then have to take care of not 1.5%, but 3% of that pay increase. So a lot of that is dealing with pay increases, and there's other things that were presented last week, like we have made a decision to add middle school sports, things that we feel like are important for our students. All presented in detail last week. We went through what we were adding, what was being presented, and if you recall, it come up to a total of $4.291 million that we were looking at in a shortfall. Now, that shortfall doesn't mean we don't have those funds. That means based on last year's budget and what we're adding, here's where we are today. We still don't have final state numbers of what revenue or dollars are coming in from the state that will be added. Based on conversation with Mr. Hagler, those look favorable. But we don't have those numbers. And so based on the information that we have and things that this board has talked about adding or doing, pay increases, step increases, it gives us a shortfall of $4.2 million. We feel confident that this is the right budget to submit for Bedford County Public Schools, with the understanding we still have state numbers to get, and then we will also get numbers that come from our Bedford County Board of Supervisors for funding there. I will comment, the Finance Committee, Chris Daniels and myself had a great meeting with our Board of Supervisors Finance Committee this past Tuesday night, and it was a great conversation. They were very complimentary of us of providing this budget early. This is earlier than we have ever presented. We did that on purpose because we wanted to make sure that the community understood what we were trying to accomplish as a school system, but also we wanted the Board of Supervisors to understand, hey, here's what we're asking for, and these are the dollar amounts. Now, we don't always get what we want, so we have to be prepared of if we don't get the additional $4.2 million, what are options that we could possibly look at? And I remember last week, we were very clear as a board, these are options, things that we need to consider or talk about. And for some reason, one item that was on that list just jumped to this conclusion of it's done. And so I want to be very clear, there have been no decisions, nor are we making any decisions tonight on anything that we need to cut. So there's several news stories out there that we're making a final cut decision tonight. Not true. Which I will remind people, unless you hear or see it in writing from the board chairman or from the school system, nothing has been decided. Not one single board member sitting at this table is allowed to speak on behalf of the board except for me as chairman. No one else speaks on behalf of the school system unless it's Mr. DePere as the superintendent. So there is a lot of speculation, all not true. So there's been so many people out in the community talking about a closure of Susie G. Not true. Don't know where that started. Is it on the list? Absolutely. That's part of the funding. $1.7 million, I think is what I saw. $1.1 million. Again, it's an option for us to look at. If anyone watched the meeting last week or went back or was here, you heard most of this board that's sitting at this table talk about how important Susie G is to this community, talked about how important it is to our students. And if anyone's been watching or listening the past 12 to 18 months, they should have also heard us talk about possibly adding a bus garage when we rebuild our bus garage and looking at the possibilities of adding that to our Susie G and expanding the programs for diesel mechanics at that location. So not sure how any of that got started or why, but people, I used to use this term all the time. I think I'm going to have to break it out. Facts over emotions. Find out what the facts are. And some of you that were out there talking this stuff are former board members. You should know what the process is. You should know that the budget has to be presented, and as a board, we need to talk about where are we? What are the recommendations? What are the things that are going to come back? And so this is part of the process. And tonight, what our plan is we, based on discussions we've had last week and throughout the week with the different executives and answering questions, our plan is to present what was presented to us last week as, hey, this is the right thing for Bedford County Schools. And we're asking for additional funding of the $4.291 million. We may get $3 million from the state, which leaves us with $1.2 or $3 million to find. That may easily be available from our Board of Supervisors. And I'm not speaking for our Board of Supervisors. Again, we've had great conversation with them. They know what we're attempting to do. But we as a board, we have to control the budget and the expenses that we have. We have 21 schools. We have 21 schools. Anybody that went through and looked at that presentation last week, we're only funded for 19 principals. We make up for 2 principals. We're only funded for 6 assistant principals. 16, keep me honest, is what we have. So there's a lot of funding that we have to create and understand on a go-forward basis. We have tried to be very transparent. All of that information was shared last week. We went line item by line item from a finance committee, understanding what our expenses are. And when we presented last week, we were very confident that we had a solid budget to push forward for Bedford County Schools. Again, 21 schools. That's all I have to say. I just want to make sure everyone understands we have gone through this budget. We've gone through why we're adding this amount. Why are we increasing by $4.2 million? Some people would speculate, well, you haven't cut anything. Not true. We went through last week where we've cut. We've cut 53 positions. Some people will say, well, your student population is decreasing. That's a true statement, but guess what? That's over 21 schools. You don't really get a whole lot when your student population reduces and you've still got 21 schools class sizes may go down by 1 or 2 students. That doesn't allow you to cut additional headcount based on what we as a board have set for our classroom sizes. That's one of the options. Do we increase it by 1 or 2? And what does that mean? We're not at a place to make those decisions yet. We firmly believe that the budget we're presenting is the right thing for Bedford County Public Schools. We will learn more when the state finalizes those numbers. Mr. Hagler, keep me honest, we don't have an exact number yet.
The House and the Senate both passed their amendments to their budgets. We don't have our detailed cut sheets, but the General Assembly has to come together, pass that, and then the governor has to sign it. So until the governor signs and they have that compromise,
Correct.
we've got to wait.
Yep.
Yep.
So, I will open it up for any other discussion that this board feels like we need to have regarding the budget that's been presented. I absolutely believe it's the right thing. But unless there's anything that someone wants to add to the agenda, which means, or to the budget, which means you increase from 4.291 to even more, or if you are adamant about decreasing before we know what our actual funding is, I open that up for discussion. All right. If there is no discussion, do I have a motion for the approval of the fiscal year 26 budget?
I would like to make a motion to approve the preliminary budget as presented to include a total operating fund of $124,607,562. Total school maintenance projects, $6,589,650. Textbook fund, $1,232,226. Nutrition fund, $5,339,040, for a grand total of $137,768,478.
I have a motion by Mr. Knight. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Purvis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Our budget is approved. Mr. Hagler, if you'll take care of sharing that.
I'll share that over with the county administration and keep the board updated on the state numbers as we go along.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, with that being taken care of, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Holbrook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I'll get you everything. Any motion I need to make? You're right next to me. You're in the slot. Thank you, sir.